I go further, let me introduce to you the next First Lady of the United States, Jane Sanders. Well, this is an extraordinary turnout, and thank you all very much for being here. Let me thank Soccer Mommy for the music. Let me thank Sarah Greenberg for her environmental work. Let me thank Andrea Molina for her work. Let me thank Farouk Shamsi. And let me thank Kendrick Sampson for his strong remarks. Our campaign is about two fundamental issues. Number one, together we will defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. You know, we have won the popular vote in Iowa. We won the New Hampshire primary. We won the Nevada caucus. And don't tell anybody, because these folks get very, very agitated and nervous. We're going to win here in Texas. And in November, we're going to defeat Trump here in Texas. Now, some folks, you may have turned on the TV, and some of the folks in the corporate media are getting a little bit nervous. And they say, you know, Bernie can't beat Trump. So let's look at some of the polls out today, which, by the way, are not inconsistent with many, many other polls, nothing special. General election, CBS, Sanders 47, Trump 44. In the key battleground states, Michigan, Sanders 48, Trump 41. In Wisconsin, Sanders 46, Trump 44. In Pennsylvania, Sanders 47, Trump 45. Last poll I saw, I think we were tied in Florida. I think we're going to beat them there as well. And let me say this to my friends in Texas. This state, maybe more than any other state, has the possibility of transforming this country. On television, they say, you know, Texas is a conservative state. It's a red state. I don't believe it for a minute. If the working people and the young people of this state, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, if our people stand together, come out to vote, we're going to win here in Texas. And the reason we are going to defeat Trump is that Americans, regardless of their political views, are sick and tired of a president who lies all the time. You know, we try to teach our kids and our grandchildren, I got 7 grandchildren, to be honest, tell the truth. And all over this country, whether you're conservative, progressive, whatever you may be, you are sick and tired of a president who lies every single day. We tell our kids to be honest. We tell our kids to do the right thing, and yet we have a president who is running a corrupt administration. We tell our kids to treat other people with respect, and yet we have a president who is a bully, who is a vindictive person who can't even get along with the people that he appoints. We have veterans in Texas and in Vermont who have put their lives on the line. Thank you, veterans. Put their lives on the line to defend American democracy and our Constitution. And yet we have a president who is undermining democracy, who calls the media enemies of the people, who has contempt for Congress, contempt for the judiciary. And no matter what your political view may be, we do not want a president who disrespects American democracy. We got a president who is a fraud. When he ran for president, he came here to Texas in 2016. He said, I, as president, we're going to provide health care to everybody. He lied. He tried to throw 32 million people off the health care that they have and to do away with pre-existing conditions protection. Trump said that his tax plan would not benefit the rich. He lied. 83% of the benefits over 10 years goes to the top 1%. Trump said he would not cut Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. He lied. His budget brought massive cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security, but he ain't going to get away with it because we are going to expand Social Security, not cut it. Trump every day is busy demonizing the undocumented. Oh, he just hates the undocumented. But when he was a private businessman, he loved the undocumented. He hired hundreds of them in his resorts so that he could exploit them and pay them low wages. Trump tells us he hates outsourcing of good jobs. He wants corporations to invest in America. But as a private businessman, he had his factories in India, China, Turkey, Bangladesh, and Mexico. We are going to defeat Donald Trump. Because whatever your political view may be, the people are sick and tired of lies, corruption, and fraud. Donald Trump says the economy is booming. Really? How come we have 500,000 people sleeping out on the streets? How come 18 million families are spending 50% of their income on housing? How come here in Texas and across this country, tens of millions of people are working at starvation wages? Well, in one instance, Trump is right. The economy is booming for his billionaire friends. Since Trump has been president, billionaires have increased their wealth by $850 billion. Last year, for the average American worker, that worker saw a real inflation accounted for wage increase of less than 1%. So what we are about is creating an economy and a government that works for all of us, not just the 1%. We are about ending a corrupt political system. We are tired of billionaires buying elections. We believe that democracy means one person, one vote, not people like Mr. Bloomberg spending hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, Michael Bloomberg, like anybody else in America, has the right to run for president, but he does not have the right to buy the presidency. And that is why we will overturn Citizens United. It is why we will move to public funding of elections. It is why we will end voter suppression throughout this country. We believe in democracy. We want America to have the highest voter turnout rate of any major country, not one of the lowest. We're going to make it easier for people to vote, not harder. If you are 18 years of age in America and you are a citizen of this country, you have the right to vote. End of discussion. And in America, we believe that whether you live in Texas or Vermont or any place else, if you work 40 hours a week, you should not live in poverty. I am very tired of talking to workers here in Texas and all across this country. Good people, working hard, but they're making 10, 11, 12 bucks an hour. You cannot raise a family on 10, 12 bucks an hour. And that is why we are going to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. That is why we are going to make it easier for workers to join unions. And that is why we're going to end the absurdity of women making 80 cents on the dollar compared to men. We believe in equal pay for equal work. And that is why we are going to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, our roads and our bridges, our water systems, our wastewater plants. That is why we are going to build up to 10 million units of affordable and low-income housing. And when we do that, we put people to work at good-paying union jobs. And when we talk about the needs of the American people, we must talk about education. And what this campaign is about, we demand a lot of people. What this campaign is about is asking you to think outside of the box, to think outside of what's on TV or what Congress has to say. Ask yourselves some very simple questions. How does it happen that in the richest country in the history of the world, when everybody knows, every psychologist tells us that 0 through 4 are the most important years of human development intellectually and emotionally, how come we have a dysfunctional and broken childcare system? Think about it. Everybody knows the future is with our kids, and millions of families cannot find high-quality, affordable childcare. Together, we change that. Universal, high-quality, affordable care for every. Okay. What about, talk about education. All of you know that the quality of education in America, to a large degree, depends upon the zip code in which you live. Right? You live in a wealthy community, there's a property tax base. Often there are very good schools. You live in a low-income community, not a whole lot of tax base. Schools are not so good. What we are going to do is triple funding for low-income Title I schools. This is the richest country on earth. We should have the best public educational system in the world. And because we believe in education, we believe in educators, teachers. There are teachers today who enter the profession earning less than $30,000 a year. There are teachers who are forced to take money out of their own pockets to buy school supplies for their kids. There are teachers who have taught for 10, 20 years, great teachers, experienced teachers, who are now leaving the profession because they can't make a living or they're working 2 or 3 jobs. And that is why we believe that every teacher in America should earn at least $60,000 a year. And I say to the young people who are here, and maybe they're not so young, we need great teachers in America. We desperately need more African American teachers. We need more Latino teachers. There is no profession more important. So I hope some of you will give serious thought to doing some of the most important work facing our country. And when we talk about education, common sense dictates that in a competitive global economy, an economy with rapidly changing technology, we need to have the best educated workforce in the world. And that is why I believe that all Americans, regardless of their income, have the right to get a higher education. And that means either college or trade school. As we rebuild our infrastructure, we're going to need all kinds of great tradespeople, men and women who are good with their hands. They need to get the training they need to do the good work. You know, about 12 years ago, against my vote, Congress voted to bail out the crooks on Wall Street who nearly destroyed our economy. 2 years ago, Trump and his friends gave $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% and large corporations, so that you have the absurd situation that last year, Amazon, which made $11 billion in profit, owned by the wealthiest guy in America, did not pay a nickel in federal taxes. Well, if we could bail out Wall Street and give huge tax breaks to billionaires, we can cancel all student debt in America. And when we think outside of the box, when we have the courage to ask questions that don't appear on TV or in Congress, we ask ourselves a simple question. Is health care a human right? Should everyone in this country be able to go to a doctor when he or she gets sick? Well, it turns out that when you ask that question, other countries around the world, whether it's Canada, whether it's Europe, Scandinavia, they have all answered it just the way you did. They say health care is a right for all people, rich, poor, middle class. We are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care as a human right, and together we're going to change that. And meanwhile, we end up spending, and I want everybody to hear this, we end up spending twice as much per person on health care as do the people of Canada or any other country. We're spending $11,000 for every man, woman, and child in this country on health care. And yet, despite this huge amount of money, we end up with a system that allows 87 million people, including many in this room, to be uninsured or underinsured. In America, at least, and I think this is a conservative number, at least 30,000 Americans die each year because they don't go to a doctor on time because they're uninsured or they got a high deductible. 30,000 people. Because of the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry, which engages in price fixing, we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. In some cases, my friends, we are paying 10 times more for the same exact medicine sold in Canada or in Mexico. And unbelievably, when you want to talk about the cruelty of the system, some 500,000 people go bankrupt every single year because of medically related debt. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. Think about what it means from a human perspective. Somebody walks into the doctor's office, they're sick. The doctor says, I have bad news for you. You have cancer and you're going to have to undergo very significant treatment. Well, when you have cancer, when you have serious heart disease, when you got Alzheimer's, you are fighting for your life. The last thing you should have to worry about is whether your family is going to suffer financial ruin because you were sick. So meanwhile, while so many of our people are uninsured and underinsured, so many of our people die because they don't get to a doctor. Last year, the drug companies and the insurance companies made $100 billion in profit. So today we say to the healthcare industry, the function of a sane and humane healthcare system is to guarantee healthcare to all, not to make huge profits for the drug companies and the insurance companies. And that is why, after 100 years of talk, we've been talking about universal health care in this country from the early 1900s. Teddy Roosevelt talked about it. FDR talked about it. Truman talked about it. Lyndon Johnson talked about it. Jimmy Carter talked about it. Barack Obama talked about it. We've been talking about it for 100+ years. Now is the time to finally do it. And whether the healthcare industry likes it or not, we are going to pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. As Americans, as serious people, we cannot avoid the major crises facing our country and the world. It is very easy for a politician to avoid some difficult issues. People do that every single day. Donald Trump thinks that climate change is a hoax. I think Donald Trump is a hoax. And let me just say this. You ready for a really radical idea? I don't want people up here collapsing in a state of shock. Here it comes. You ready? Our administration will believe in science. I know that's a radical idea, but we will. And on a very serious vein, what are the scientists who know the most about climate change telling us today? What they are telling us is that the crisis is much more severe than they had previously thought. That polar ice caps are melting at a faster rate. Oceans are warming at a faster rate. Seas are rising at a faster rate. Drought is impacting the planet in a faster rate. All you got to do is turn on the TV and see the beautiful country of Australia burning right in front of our eyes. You know what happened in California. And when we talk about extreme weather disturbances, hey, Houston, you know a little bit about that. You know about the incredible downpours and the floods that have impacted this city and communities all over the world. What the United Nations tells us, if we do not stop this rapidly rising planet, the climate, if we do not stop the heating of the planet, what we will be looking at the end of this century are hundreds of millions of people around the world who are climate refugees. That means they can no longer live in their communities because there's no water, there's no land to grow their crops. And when hundreds of millions of people migrate, you're looking at international tension and war. This is an issue that, to me, is a moral issue. We do not have the choice but to go forward and transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And because this is not just an American issue, we can do everything right tomorrow, wouldn't solve the problem. What we need is a president, and I accept this responsibility, of reaching out to the people of China who are suffering severe problems as a result of climate change. People of India, people of Pakistan, people of Brazil, people all over the world. And our message to them is that maybe, just maybe, instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we should pool our resources and fight our common enemy, which is climate change. And when we look at some of the major crises facing our people, it is absolutely imperative that we bring fundamental reform to a broken and racist criminal justice system. Every American should be appalled that we have more people in jail today, over 2 million, than any other country on earth, including China, 4 times our size. And the people in jail are disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American. So what we intend to do is to invest in our young people, in good job training, in education, not more jails and incarceration. Today in America, right now as we speak, there are 400,000 people in jail who have not been convicted of anything. They were arrested, they were charged with a crime, but they're in jail because they cannot afford the $500 or $1,000 in bail that they need. In the year 2020, we don't need debtors' prisons in America. We're going to end cash bail. We are going to end private prisons and detention centers. Corporations should not be making huge profits by locking up fellow Americans. And brothers and sisters, we are going to end the war on drugs. On day one, there are some things you could do as president through executive order, a lot that you need legislation for. But on day one, through executive order, we will legalize marijuana in every state in this country. And let me ask you guys a question. How many people here know of someone who was arrested for possession of marijuana? Anybody here know anybody who wasn't arrested? All right. I mean, this is what the war on drugs has done. And that is why not only are we going to legalize marijuana in every state in the country, we're going to expunge the records of those arrested for marijuana. And when we talk about justice and when we talk about decency, we must also understand that we have an immigration system today that is also racist and is also broken. I am the proud son of an immigrant. My father came to this country from Poland at the age of 17. He came to this country without a nickel in his pocket, escaping poverty. He came to this country not knowing a word of English and with very limited education. I will not stand for the demonization of the immigrant community in America. On day one, we will repeal all of Trump's racist immigration executive orders. On day one, through executive order, we will restore the legal status of 1.8 million young people and their parents eligible for DACA. On day one, we will end a border policy which has allowed federal agents to snatch babies from the arms of their mothers. That is not what America is about. And our administration will succeed in what should have been done decades and decades ago, and that is pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. All over this country, and I know here in Texas, there is great concern about gun violence and mass killings. I don't have to, you all are more familiar than I with the horror that took place in El Paso. And here is my promise to you. My promise is that our gun policy will be written by the American people, not the NRA. And what we are seeing all across this country in rural states and urban states with gun owners and non-gun owners is an understanding that we need universal background checks. We need to end the gun show loophole. And a majority of the American people now understand something that I believed for decades, that we must end the sale and distribution of assault weapons in this country. As a United States Senator, I hear a lot of speeches on the floor of the Senate from conservative Republicans, including some from your own state. And these Republicans tell us that they believe in small government, they believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people. That's their mantra. Well, I say to those hypocrites, if you believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people, understand that it is women who have a right to control their own bodies, not the government. And that is why I promise you that no one that I nominate to the Supreme Court or the federal bench, nobody will be nominated unless that man or woman is 100% in favor of Roe v. Wade. We will fight to codify, put into law Roe v. Wade. And we will expand significantly funding for Planned Parenthood. Bottom line here, it is women who control their bodies, not the government. Brothers and sisters, this campaign is about beating Trump, but it's about more than that. It is about understanding that real change in America, as all of you know, never ever has taken place from the top on down, always from the bottom on up. If you study history, you know that that is the story of the labor movement in this country. It is the story of the civil rights movement in this country. It is the story of the women's movement in this country. It is the story of the gay rights movement in this country. It is the story of the environmental movement. Because right now, in terms of the environment, you got young people in the Sunrise Movement here, and we're proud to have their support in this campaign. And all over the world, you got young people by the millions who are coming together and saying to the leaders of their government, we demand the right to live in a planet that is healthy and habitable. So what this campaign is about, knowing that real change never takes place from the top on down, that is why the message of our campaign is us, not me. It is us, not me, because we have got to understand, that we do understand, that we are in this together. There is no family in America, no family. You think you're alone, you're not. There's no family in America that does not have its share of problems, trust me. All right? You think you're the only family? You're not. Every family has a problem. And what America must be is an understanding that my family has got to care about your family. Your family has got to care about my family. And that as human beings, we share a common humanity, that we are in this together. And the other part of us, not me, is a very significant political statement, which you don't see on TV or in the papers. And that is, many of us understand that in order to bring about real change, we have got to take on the greed and corruption of Wall Street. We have got to take on the drug companies and the insurance companies. We have got to take on the fossil fuel industry. We have got to take on the military-industrial complex. We have got to take on the prison-industrial complex. As a matter of fact, we've got to take on the whole damn 1%. And make this 1% understand that they are not rulers of the universe, that they will not continue to have all the power, that they will not continue to accumulate all of the wealth and all of the income, that this country and our government belong to all of us, not just a few. Now, Trump and his friends think that they're going to win the election by dividing our people up. They're going to try to divide us up based on the color of our skin, where we were born, what our religion is, what our sexual orientation may be. But we got news for Trump. That strategy will not succeed because we are doing exactly the opposite. We're going to bring our people together. Black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight. We are going to stand together and create a government that works for all of us. A week from this coming Tuesday, going to be a very important primary here in Texas. And in many ways, as I said earlier, Texas is a very interesting state politically because many of the pundits and the geniuses out there think that this is a conservative state. I don't believe that for a moment. And if on Tuesday we can bring out working people and young people, people who have given up on the political process, people of all shades who believe in economic justice, social justice, racial justice, environmental justice. If we can create a large voter turnout, we're going to win the Democratic primary a week from Tuesday. And I have every confidence that in November we're going to beat Trump here in Texas. So, brothers and sisters, in this moment in American history, in this, the most consequential election in the modern history of America, let us go forward, let us beat Trump, let us transform this country. Thank you all very much.